Hello everyone, Maurice here, and today I'm bringing you three new updates in Axie Origins. So they're quite an exciting day for Axie Origins, I must say, after the whole week of nothingness, at least in Origins. Of course, a lot of things has been happening in the Axie world, but for Origins, there's really not much happening in the off seasons, and finally we have, wow, three new updates out of nowhere, really. First of all, we have two new starter Axies, in this case the Bubble Synergy Axies. And then we have actually a new game mode as well, even though it's a more casual, no reward game mode. It could be pretty fun called Arcade Retro. And finally, we have a new feature which is Shop in the Origins game. So let's just see what those are. First of all, let's look at the shop, and it is really just a Web 2 shop, and the way is maybe this just makes Origins more familiar, looks more familiar to a regular Web 2 player. But basically, what it does is you basically buy premium currency, in this case called gems, and you can use those gems to get cosmetics. In this case, a gacha to get the cosmetics. You get well, you can use the gems also for buying items, in-game items. So, for example, material for evolving your Axies or for upgrading your starter Axies, and also getting this is basically a new way of getting new starter axes. Or just I think for any players, new players coming in, if they want to get starter axes, then you have to use the gems to buy it. I don't know if there'll be any other ways at this point, but shop will be like the only way you can get, let's say, Momo, for example, at this point for new players. And you might ask, how do you get these gems? And here are basically, well, the prices for the gems. And well, what you do is you go to app.axes and then you pay USDC to get the gems. So unfortunately, yeah, this is I think currently the only way, and you can't really grind for it. Of course, you may say for free-to-play player, you can always grind to get SLP and then convert those SLP or even AXS rewards to then USDC and then to get these gems. But it is really pretty troublesome, I must say. So it is definitely geared for those players who are more like Web 2. They are willing to do microtransaction, pay for premium currency to buy certain in-game items, and yeah, that is basically the model. And of course, this some of the profit from this will probably go back to the Axie treasury. Yeah, but I'm not going to go into the economics of it, but I'm just thinking from a player's perspective. Then yeah, if you want to get those things, especially the one that really troubles me is the starter axes, then yeah, you have to really put in the money, which I must say it really defeats the purpose of having starter axes in the first place. I feel this because I would have thought starter axes would be mostly for new players who just want to try the game out, like learn some game mechanic. But then now if they're locked behind premium currencies like gem, then it really just makes it a lot more inaccessible. So hopefully there'll be more ways in which we can earn gems in the future, or the alternative solution is basically if they have a way to directly convert SLP or AXS like directly into gems without needing to withdraw the token or wait for the token to unlock, and then once you unlock the token, then you can convert that, put it in the wallet, convert that into USDC, and then going to buy the gem. So it's really not very user friendly at the moment for free to play player. Of course, if you already have USDC in your wallet, then sure, easy enough. But for free to play player, which are probably the majority of the new players coming in, then it might be a bit more difficult. Okay, then let's move on to the new starter axes, which are the main thing that I do want to talk about, and they are Noor and Rouge. So let's talk about Noor first. Noor is the black one here, and one thing I should say is, we know the runes, charms, and cards, but they can obviously change, and there could be the balance changes before the start of the season or during the next season. So everything here is really subject to changes. Well, right. With that said, then let's just get into the runes and charms and cards. So let's just look at Noir first, and the rune is notice bubble shield, and what it does is that at the end of the turn, then you have plus 10 shield, that's the base. So at the base level, plus 10 shield is really not much, but uh, it gives a bonus of 6 shield per bubble on this axis. So if you have 4 bubbles on this axis, you get 34 shield, which is comparable to calcium armor, I guess. But then the requirement is that you have to have 4 bubbles. So I must say, yeah, not really that good. I mean, it's okay for a rare rune, let's put it that way. But it's not going to be game breaking. And then for the charm, it is actually this one is actually quite a bit more useful, and the black bubble is well, can only be put on non-attack cards, and it says target gains bubble equals to energy spent, and obviously the um, obvious target for this kind of charm would be something like sponge, where yeah, you can target any ally, right? For sponge, target any ally, and for that target ally, you get to gain some bubbles. So I would say it's not bad because then you can focus your bubbles into a particular axis, like the half ocean axis. So I would say this is can see play for sure. Yeah, so of course there are other charms that could be good, but this will be more like a supporting axis can use this charm on sponge in order to even put more bubbles on your carry. Okay, then let's just look into the card. So the main one I do want to talk about is Code Fish, which is the key card, I would say, like the power card here. It's a power card. It says innate, target any ally, which is always good. And what it does is that at the turn ends, right, target. So basically the axis with this particular power will have plus 6 shield per bubble and bubble bomb. Uh, yeah, so I think this is no, I'm not sure about the wording, a bit weird, but this is what I assume will the effect would be. It will be that the Axie with this power will gain shield at the end of the turn. And the amount of shield depends on how many bubbles. Of course, if you have, let's say, 10 bubble bombs, then you basically gain 60 shield, which is pretty good, I must say. But of course, it is only good when you have bubbles. If there's no bubble, then so the direct comparison will definitely be Bumpy, where Bumpy gains 8 shield per card played, every turn. So generally you'll get like 40, 50 shield, perhaps for Bumpy. And the main difference is that for Bumpy, that shield can be gained relatively, especially early game when you play a lot of Nemos, that kind of thing. Whereas for Coldfish, it will have to be a bit later. The benefit will come a lot later when you actually have a lot of bubble bombs. So yeah, I think it's good, but yeah, of course, only being available in a starter actually is the limiting factor here. Okay, another card that's interesting, of course, is the Beast Bun, which has ambush, and of course the key thing is taunt, and it's literally like well, if you played it in before season 2 or something, then it's literally like the old shrimp where it applies taunt to self and the target, right? So it can be used both defensively and offensively, and that's why I think this is actually a pretty flexible card and pretty strong, because defensively you can draw attacks applying taunt to self, but also it can be used as a stream like now, where it has ambush, so you can target the back and the front, and then yeah, you can just basically target a specific axis, opponent axis. So that I think is pretty strong. Having said that, though, not sure how good it is in a bubble kind of build, so that is maybe the downside of it. But still, I think if a generic bubble attack build, then this could be good. Okay, then I should talk about Oranda Tail. So this one is target any ally plus 7 shield per bubble and bubble bomb on the target. So again, synergizes well with things like Cold Fish, where if you put it on an Axie with a lot of bubble bombs, and it can give you a lot more shield. So that's pretty good. So you can get up to maybe even 100 shield if you put it on the target with many bubble and bubble bombs. Especially if it has Cold Fish as well, then it can gain 150 shield or something, right, with just one card. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. Of course, Sponge is a must, I must say, for bubble build in general. If you don't have Sponge, it's probably going to be a bit difficult. And then yeah, the other two, Gale and Renchu Mouth, and both of these are just AoE attacks that gives bubble to all ally Axie. So yeah, it's more supporting, I would say, kind of Axie. So that's for Noah. Then let's talk about Rouge. So for Rouge, yes, I would say I was going to say more interesting, but yeah, different, I guess. So let's just talk about the runes. Okay, so the rune is the Rouge's Torpedo, and it basically gives you another card. So you start your deck has well start your game with an extra card in your deck, and that's Torpedo. And what that does is that it has Retain. Okay, it's a 1 energy cost, so that's quite important. That it costs 1 energy, it has Retain, and it says they can target any ally and gives 2 bubble on the ally, then detonate all the bubble bombs on the target. I think that is the key part. Still have also have banish, meaning you can only replay it once unless you get it back from the banish pile. But you usually probably only need to play it once. And I think it's well, the reason this is good, this card is good is that I think it's because it increases the consistency of bubble teams in general, where sometimes you might just not have the card to detonate the bombs on maybe a particular axis, and this has the flexibility of basically allowing you to detonate bubble bombs on a particular ally axis. So I think it's good. Of course, the downside is that it costs 1 energy, so that's has to be the case. Otherwise, it would just be too good. But then, if it costs 1 energy, it doesn't really do any damage on its own. So that is the downside. Yeah. So uh, again, I think it's a good card, but being in a starter Axie, oh, actually no, well, actually it's Rune, so yeah, I can imagine this being played, but of course, like it takes up a Rune slot, so if you play this, then you can't have yeah any other runes. Which, to be honest, having this extra card in the pile, is it worth it? It really depends, and it's probably only worth it in very specific combo sponge bubble bomb build. Okay, and then for the charm, then we have a red bubble, and this one I must say is a bit underwhelming. It's can only be put on multi-hit or AoE attacks, and what it does is that it shows one random ally axis equal to 70% of the attacks. So first of all, it's multi-hit and AoE don't have much attack anyway, so 70% doesn't really mean much. Maybe at 20 shield or something. And the key, the key thing is random, because if you can still specifically put it on a particular axis or even like on self, then at least there's still a bit of control as to where it will go. But putting a shield on a random Axie is really too inconsistent. So, and it costs 4 PP, so it's really not worth it compared to other bubble generating, yeah, bubble generating charms. Okay, then let's talk about the cards. So I think the main one I want to talk about is like first of all, it's Kind Fish. Zero, every time you see 0 energy is always exciting. In this case, 0 energy, heal, 5 heal, so that means you can put White Sage on as well to cleanse. And then you can say, well, it says target any ally, apply 1 bubble, well, which is not bad. I mean, it's just a free bubble in a way, and 2 cleanser. So the 2 cleanser is the one that I really feel is a bit underwhelming, just because most of the debuffs applying cards apply like 3 stacks. Let's say 3 stacks of vulnerable, 3 stacks of fragile, 3 stacks of especially death mark really. And having a crew cleanser doesn't really block much, so the cleanser is really the underwhelming part. I mean, this is still good. I have a 0 cost card, aqua card you can put like certain charms on, but yeah, the cleanser is not the best. Okay, and then Lotus. Lotus is basically, I would say, a worse version of Cocoon in a way, because I'm not sure, actually at this point, I'm not sure if this effect can be dispelled, but I assume not. But if it can, it will be even worse. Yeah, so it just basically makes target's next single attack plus 65 damage, which in a way can synergize with Bubble, where you can maybe KO an Axie with that plus the bubble damage and so on. So it's similar to Cocoon in a way. Now also of course scales of certain cards like Sandal or something like or Prangna, where the attack matters. And then we have iWing, which I'm not sure why. Yeah, it's basically a worse version of Oranda Horn. Yes, because it's entirely any ally, but it only dispels 3 instead of 5. So I guess that's where they just try to balance it as a starter Axie and giving it worse cut than the NFT Axies maybe. Not too sure, but it's yeah, just the worst version of it. Okay, and then the other 3 cards are basically the same thing: Gill, Renshidu, Mouth, and Sponge, which we've seen before. Of course, having Sponge is still very important for a Bubble Bomb build. Okay, so that is for the 2 starter axes, and I must say one thing I should note, if I just scroll back up, is that this time round I do feel like it's really not um, game breaking or anything, unlike things like Momo or even Finoki, or unlike even the charms and runes are not that great. I mean, there are good charms and runes, I must say, but it's probably not as game breaking as things like Furious Fox in Purge team, that kind of thing. So other than the rare era, they might not see play, except for maybe like Black Bubble and certain charms. But starter Axes themselves are, I don't think, at the level of Momo or something that's game breaking. Okay, so in a way, I feel like, of course, that's just my opinion. Maybe there will be players who will be able to make it work a lot better. And maybe Bubble is just so much better. Maybe they'll buff Bubble in season 7, similar to how they buff Feather or something. So who knows? Maybe these can be very broken if they actually change the mechanic themselves. So yeah, it's too early to tell at this point. But at the moment, it is what it is in terms of the power level. I don't think it's that high at the moment. Okay, and finally, let's talk about the new game mode, which is pretty exciting. First of all, it's no rewards, so it's literally just for fun. But still, I think it's definitely fun for many players. Right? First is existing players who played uh, Axie Classic before and now, playing Origins, and yeah, it's just in a way like combining the two, some sort of mechanics. So okay, I should just talk about the game mode first. It's arcade retro, so retro because it includes uh, three different uh, Axie Classic mechanics, right? So we have the class advantage, meaning, yeah, I think it's class advantage is pretty fun. So certain class will deal damage more or less depending on the axes, no, the receiving axes as well. So yeah, so I think this is pretty fun. And then class bonus is the other one, right? So 15% damage to attack class of the same class of the owner. So I can actually see those 2 elements being implemented, maybe even permanently to a particular competitive mode. So these two, I must say, are pretty good addition, or just something to try. And I can imagine certain axes will be better. So because let's say you have a plant with a lot of plant attack, then that would feel a lot better. But of course, in this case, this attack, maybe shield card will also should have something similar or something. I don't know. But of course, this is just for fun, not really balanced in any way. And of course, if you want to play for fun, then crit is an important factor. And so they bring crit back. In this case, 10% chance of getting a crit, and it's 2 times damage as well. So definitely fun if you hit a crit, and definitely not fun if you are on the receiving end of it. But of course, yeah, this is really just for fun. So it's not really, don't take it too seriously. It's just, yeah, it's just have fun. Hopefully, though, I do see some potential of some of these mechanic getting into a more serious alternative game mode. Yeah, but that will be probably sometime in the future. At this point, I think it's really just testing it out, and I think that there are actually more reasons to have this as well. One is to actually get players who are relatively new to Axie, and their first game might be Axie Origins, and they might want to actually try out Axie Classic because they like at least have a taste of what some of the mechanics are like. So getting familiar with some of the mechanics might encourage some players to just try the actual Axie Classic game out. So maybe they're playing something for Classics, who knows? And the other, of course, is getting back the old players who left Axies. long ago that they played Axie Classic 2 years ago or something, but then they left Axie, and then yeah, they may not want to learn a new game. And Axie Origins is very different from Axie Classic, of course, right? And then maybe this might be a way for those players to come back and at least get some familiarity with the mechanics. Oh, okay, now I know at least they know what's class advantage, class bonus, and that might feel like give them the nostalgic feel as well while playing, learning a new game in Origins. So yeah, so this I think is pretty fun, classic Origins. So yeah, so I think that is pretty much it in terms of the updates. Yeah, I think it's in general it's just good to see finally some updates, and definitely look forward to seeing more new players coming in. And I feel like these updates are mostly to prepare for onboarding and also for returning players, those that played maybe Axie Classic, right? When they come back in the next bull run and they come back to Axie, of course, during the next Blue Run, which hopefully will be soon. Who knows? But Axie Origins will probably be the so-called flagship game for Axie Infinity in general. So and most of the returning player will be probably playing Axie Origins because that's what the latest game is and where the rewards comes in as well. And yeah, so I think they are probably preparing for that. And with Axie parts upgrades, hopefully, just over the horizon, yeah, definitely will be interesting to see what are the new things that will change in terms of Axie Origins, and yeah, just be prepared for the exciting times ahead. Okay, that's it for this video. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.